I guess we can start meeting of the Capital Committee for October 19th. Call to order. Let's see. Item 2, approval of the minutes from October 5th and October 12th. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? Can we?
I have one correction on the 12th, if that's okay.
Yep.
On the 12th? Sorry, Terry. Where I said he feels making Atlantic Ave one way, that's not actually what I said. I meant Pleasant Street one way out of town from Outdoor Power to Five Corners.
So that's Pleasant one way.
Just from Outdoor Power or Williams Lane, however you, that's what I may not have said it perfectly like that, but that's what I meant.
To Five Corners?
Yes.
Five Corners?
Yes.
Okie dokie.
No problem. 50 years from now, somebody might read that and thought I was crazy.
Is it okay to approve that with that correction, or we have to wait?
It would be approved as amended.
Okay.
So you have to make separate
Okay.
motions, not the gift.
So if there's a motion to approve minutes from October 5th?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
And a motion to approve the minutes from October 12th as amended.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Can we do, did you want to bring up something, Matt?
No.
Oh, it was just that?
Just that. That's
Okay.
it. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Item 3, overview of fiscal year 2018 DPW capital fund requests. And Kara's here for that. Kara, if you want to begin, that's fine.
Sure. We have a number of vehicles that we're requesting. Pickup truck with plow. This is one of the more used vehicles in the fleet. Not only does it do day-to-day running around, but we do have plows, and we have sufficient sanders right now to put into this, so we don't need to purchase a new one. The one-ton dump truck with plow is also a highly used vehicle, and you'll note that we have 3 years in a row that we're purchasing. These are all replacement vehicles. The new equipment is a loader. We're requesting $250,000 for a second loader. We have one which we use for a number of different activities, especially during snow operations. Not only does it fill the trucks with the salt, but it also clears the areas that have the most problematic wind situations. This will allow us to expand our capabilities there. Right now, we have to rent equipment from contractors, and we can reduce that number by one. The bucket truck with chipper, we've brought up a year. It was, I believe, in 19. There's pictures included, and the truck that we have is extremely past its prime, and I have a concern with being able to get the aerial device approved. That has to be checked every year, and when we had it evaluated last, they said it was highly unlikely that it would pass the next inspection. The other piece of equipment that we use pretty constantly is the grader, and the one that we have doesn't owe us a dime, and this will allow us to grade the gravel roads that we have. There is a new piece of equipment, the leaf and rubbish vacuum truck. We have problems downtown trying to get into gutters and into corners of sidewalks and so forth, that this will allow us to be able to do in a much quicker fashion. And the mowing equipment is something that I added this year and have put out for every third year. Typically, the mowers are $15,000 to $20,000, which doesn't reach the capital threshold. So we've grouped together several pieces that need to be replaced, and we've provided pictures of those. And Lastly, for this year is the Sconset flagpole. I have made a request to CPC for funding as well, and this will be the hiring of a architectural restoration company to do the work. We had tried for many years to try to do that ourselves, and we are not capable of doing it, so we're requesting funds.
Christie,
Yeah.
I have a question. What happens with the old vehicles?
We trade them in where we can, and we do right now have a number of scrap vehicles, and we do an auction. We actually are preparing to do one right now. We did one the year before last to get rid of the scrap vehicles, and we're getting ready to do the next one to get rid of the scrap.
And I just have a general question. This is a 10-year lookout. Why are there no numbers for the last 3 years? 25, 26, and 27?
I'll have to work with the mechanic on that. We did have a rotation schedule, and I will check on that for you.
Just can I just ask a question, Kara? I mean, when you say 1-ton dump truck, I'm looking at page 11. 6, is that 6 trucks? No.
No.
Because it says 325, and I see that that's the number that's way out at the end. So I'm trying to figure out why it says, I'm not sure.
Originally,
6 years of expenses in that? Is that what that means? No. Okay.
no, we need to replace 6 vehicles. So there's 3,
okay.
and then there's a gap, and then I need to add 2 more years out there.
So you
it's
need
to
us
remind
to
me.
approve that all now, not just fiscal 18.
I'm sorry?
You want us to? No.
No,
Okay.
just 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, you're doing 1-tons instead of 550s, is that, you think that's the right thing? I mean, it doesn't really matter, but you know what I mean when I ask that question.
Yep. No, the 1-tons can be 550s.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I'm just curious if we're doing it to save, because it does save some money if you don't need it to be a 550. But a 550 is like the old days of a 350. I'm
Right,
just asking
right.
what you
Yeah.
know.
Well, these are pretty much workhorses,
Yeah.
so we do want to make sure that we have the capacity there.
Because you should be able to sell these easy over here.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
Nantucket.
we typically try to trade them just
Oh, okay.
because it gets us a reduced cost.
Okay.
Karen, do you work with the local dealership for any of this stuff?
We buy off of the state bid, and there's different companies that have the Ford, the Chevy, there's a Dodge. So in the past, we've purchased typically Fords. We did just recently purchase a Chevy just to compare, work experience. But by and large, we buy Ford, or for the larger trucks, we typically do internationals.
But as far as the local dealership goes, they're going to have to be competitive, more competitive than the state bid.
Yeah. Got it.
And generally, they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Right.
Christie,
Yeah, Richard?
I just have a question about the Sconset flagpole. You're guessing it's going to cost $200,000 to fix? That's for construction?
That's the number that I got from the architectural SMRT architects, and CPC actually asked the same question. So I have a meeting this afternoon with Dick Webb to go over the details of the budget so that I can flesh that out and be more specific.
So how much have we spent with the design architect?
Nothing as of yet.
What do you think was spent?
I need to find out from him.
That's not including the concrete issue, right? This is just the, is
No,
it
that's the
including
whole thing.
the whole, like when the car hit the old
Well, we did.
replicate
We
that?
did fix that.
Okay.
But we're going to have to take out the concrete pathways, and we've already taken out the concrete decorative collar.
Yeah.
And the mass that's in there, we believe is flared out, so we have to excavate down to get it out. When we replace the mast with wood, it's going to have to be down a certain depth so that
No, I understand.
it
what you mean.
doesn't
No, the wind,
blow
I
over.
get that. I know it isn't a flagpole. I
Right,
mean,
it's-
200,000 for a flagpole,
Yeah.
it isn't really. That's
No.
the cheapest part.
Right, right.
Okay, all right.
Karen, with the truck and plow, what are we responsible for as opposed to what do we contract out?
We do the bulk of the work ourselves. We have, depending on the severity of the storm, we hire in 3 loaders and a 1-ton with plow. In the most recent year, we had 16 people on the road. Previous to that, we had 12, and we had a much better response from the citizens on the quality of the plowing. What we found was that previously, in previous years, each plow driver had over 10 miles of road to plow, and the optimum amount is 5. So we're working towards trying to cut the length of route for each driver to a number that allows them to repeat the circuit more often and do a better job of plowing.
Jim?
Carrie, you mentioned that I believe one of these vehicles was going to replace a vehicle you rent or lease from a contractor? Maybe I misunderstood that.
No,
You said
we
you'll
don't
have-
have any leased vehicles.
You said when you buy this, you'll be able to have one less from a contractor. What
For
were you
plowing.
referring to?
For plowing, we contract out 3 loaders, so we'll be
Okay.
able to go down to 2 loaders for
So
snow
what
plowing.
will the cost savings be for that?
Depends on the storm, but we pay $250 an hour, I believe, for
Okay.
the loaders.
So do you have an idea what your costs were for last year for all 3? You can just divide them by 3. I'm just trying to understand what the savings is going to be. You're going to have some savings.
Correct.
And you've also said these have incurred maintenance expenses, repairs and maintenance expenses, is one of your rationales for purchasing them.
Mm-hmm.
So in the first year, they're going to be under warranty, I assume.
Yes.
So that's you won't have the rental of the third front end loader, and then you're at $250, and you're not going to have the repairs and maintenance. Just give us an idea about how much that'll be in savings, and I just want to make sure that gets tied back to your budget, so you reflect that savings in your budget.
Okay.
If you don't have that now, maybe you can bring that back at the next meeting.
Sure.
Thank you.
Peter?
Although I would say, Karen, that would be an operational savings, not a capital savings, of course.
Correct.
So
Correct.
it would be
That's what I
different.
meant,
Yeah.
her operational budget.
Correct. I have a question, if I could, Kara, on the, and I think we asked it last year, with the new pieces of equipment to replace the existing older ones that you're getting rid of, how many of those pieces will not be stored inside?
Yeah, that's a problem.
I think at this point, the tree truck is outside, the loader is outside, the trucks are outside. I think the leaf back will probably be inside. That'll be the only one. Which actually leads into the 2019 big number. I had $3 million in 2018 for the DPW garage, and we've just begun the feasibility analysis with Weston and Sampson of the DPW garage program. And they kind of stepped back, took a look from scratch of the number of staff we have, the number of vehicles we have, the work topics that we need to do, and generated a soup to nuts recommendation. And attached in your package is a draft of that, and the draft does come up with a total of $23 million for a complete redo of the DPW program, so to speak, keeping the mechanics garage and keeping the administration building, but adding new fuel tank, new salt shed, new storage garage. And when they brought that number forward, I indicated to them that I didn't think that was going to be a number that we could accommodate. And so I've been working with them to bring that back. When this feasibility study is a little bit further down the road, we'll begin discussing that with town administration before we move forward with next year's requests.
If I may, Christine.
Sure.
Part of that feasibility study, if they could, I think it would behoove everyone, almost a bare bones cold storage type building, and to look at that that could occupy 100% of our rolling stock, I think is a good start, because then we can say that, okay, there's a increase in the life expectancy of our equipment if all of it is undercover. Push aside the employee part first and just look at rolling stock to get it covered. And then I think what's smart after that is the mechanics zone and compliance with OSHA and whatnot, so that those people can maintain your existing and work at it from that way back. Instead of looking at, my opinion, instead of looking at your position or the secretary or someone like that first, I'd go from the capital equipment, which is very, very expensive. I know I have a bunch of other questions on some of the equipment, but I can wait on some of those. So,
Good point.
I think that's a very good point, because especially with all the sensitivities of, I just looked at the fitness center, and I'm like, okay, here's another fitness center. We have one in the fire station. We have one in the police station. Not that that's not good, but those are, when people look at a plan, they kind of zero in on that and question that. And if you a good justification for your baseline is to protect the equipment.
Mm-hmm. Especially on the boom truck, if that's sitting outside and getting rained on, I mean, we have a crane. It sits outside and we cover it in the winter. And even though it does have its annual tests, and Mother Nature does take a lot of life out of those things. And I don't think I'd want to be in the bucket or operating the boom if it's been sitting outside all winter. Do you have manuals on uses of all the equipment, what to do, what not to do? Is there a preventative maintenance
Safety-wise?
schedule on every piece of equipment?
The current mechanic is creating that in a paper manual right now. He's actually working with the state to create a fleet management software that will be rolled out to all communities. So he's being very proactive that way.
Good, because I mean, there's different types of equipment, hydraulics and diesel and gas, and you have to be a kind of a master in all of those. Is it just one person?
No, we have two mechanics.
Okay. And does anyone actually help them? I'm sure there's...
If necessary, yeah. There's a number of guys that do have the facility to be able to help with mechanical stuff.
And they're just working on DPW equipment, no other departments?
No, we also do the other divisions as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good. And when you take a lawnmower, for example, some of the deck mowers from DPW to Sconset, say, how does it get there?
We trailer them.
Is that open trailers or closed trailers?
Open.
Okay. And we bought the open trailers just because it's less money, or?
It was, yes, yeah. And it gave us the most flexibility. We have, I think, 3 trailers, and there's a number of mowers going out at any one time. There's the parks ones, there's the the roadside ones, there's the brush cutting ones. So it just gave us the most flexibility.
How about when you wash off mowers and deck mowers? Where is that usually done? After-
Typically, it's done by the street at the fire hydrant. And the plan does include a truck wash facility that will allow us to do it in a more compliant manner.
Okay, in that compliant manner, is that recapturing that water and putting it in tight tank?
We haven't gotten to that level of detail, but in my experience, that is most appropriate when you don't have sewer. But hopefully the Nantucket sewer will get voted and will be able to be connected to sewer.
Usually, in I know the communities I've worked with before, that when you do deck mowing alongside roads, all the petroleum-based residue and whatnot is deemed a waste you have to deal with. And we used to have to wash down our deck mowers and collect the water and then have Clean Harbors come and pick up that water tank, which is incredible, but just a question.
We need to bring that stuff up.
Jim?
I think there's a great point.
Could you just, it sounds like you've got a great need for the items that you're bringing forward. Just if you could summarize the fleet in general, about not necessarily a particular piece of equipment, but maybe the median age, what % does this replace of your fleet? Is this long overdue? Is this part of a replacement plan that you've been doing every year? Those kinds of things.
I meant to include the vehicle list, and I apologize for not doing that. Rolling stock-wise, it's about 40 pieces, and we, over the last several years, have been trying to be more proactive with replacement. When I first got here, the average age was significantly higher than it is right now. There has been a commitment by the town meeting to provide vehicles that has allowed us to increase the average age, and we are doing much better than we were even 5 years ago.
So, what's the average age now, or median age?
I'd have to calculate it for you off the top of my head. I don't have that.
Okay. Is it? And as I said, is this part of a replacement plan over? I mean, how often should the entire fleet? I know there's a lot of.
Each vehicle has
Its own
an
useful
expected life.
Yeah.
And
But in general,
in the
I mean,
program, we've tried to be as close to that replacement number as possible,
Okay.
with the idea of looking at the existing vehicles to see how much useful life they have. So there's a couple that we might replace sooner, just based on their current condition.
Thank you.
If I may, have we ever looked at contracting, for example, Bartlett Tree, which has a couple of trucks out here, instead of, as an alternative? Don't rebuy the boom truck, don't rebuy the chipper. I mean, I become very afraid when people start using chippers who may be only using it 2 or 3 times a year. Did we ever think about contracting that out, therefore saving capital, and potentially the arborists can be doing better things instead of...
We did talk about purchasing a stump grinder, because the vendor that we have, has his own business, and, there are times when trees are cut down, especially in the sidewalk downtown, that the stumps stay there for a while, and they're a concern. So we were actually thinking about getting a stump grinder ourselves. The problem with depending on another vendor is that we're at the mercy of their schedule. And the one thing that I don't think people recognize so much, because we don't talk about it that much, is that in storm events, we have very few trees going down. And the reason we do is because we have the ability to get up in the bucket truck and get that thing trimmed. We also have an arborist who is very amenable to climbing the trees, which is certainly no easy feat. So I would hesitate not to have a tree truck for that specific topic.
How many times a year does that truck actually get used?
Well, it goes out most days.
Okay.
And in a week, I haven't kept an average, but it's not unusual for them to come back with several tons of limbs that need to be disposed of at the landfill. So they're very proactive.
Do we have a database of our trees, meaning the town of Nantucket's trees?
We actually,
Along
it's interesting
roadsides?
that you asked that. I just asked Dale for a list of the town trees, and he brought me out 3 drawers of file cards that look like they've been from the 80s. And I'm in the process of having the staff put that into a database.
Good.
I don't feel that we've done a very good job of keeping track of the work on the town trees. It's
Is
just
there any semblance of an integrated pest management with those trees? Any record of pruning or fertilization or beetle control or any of that?
he does all of the treatment for the elms the same year.
We have those left?
Yeah, we do. So that he can keep track of when the last time was that they were treated. He works with, I just had the name. There's a particular company that works with him on the pest management for the trees. I don't believe they've been documented other than our invoices for the contractor to be here.
Is there anyone on our staff who is a licensed applicator?
No.
So then wouldn't it make sense maybe to reach out contractually to companies like a Bartlett? I'm not saying Bartlett is the best, but for that, or even maybe getting together with some of the golf courses who, in a way of check and balance, they should have licensed applicators on their staff to do with the things they do, because you need different license for herbicides, fungicides, fertilizers, so on and so forth.
On the fields, we do work very closely with the My Comet Golf Course.
Good.
And also the Harrells, who makes a specific blend for
Yeah, Harold's is a
Nantucket.
company that distributes seed mixes. My life before I was in yacht clubs was in large properties and resorts and golf courses, so we used to be responsible for a lot of different things.
We do the, our Parks foreman does have the fertilizer license, and he does do the calculations to make sure that we are in compliance with that on the treatment of the fields. He does have several people that he reaches out to. Our irrigation company does golf courses and works with him on the irrigation system. So he does reach out to experts to help him with that.
Good. Thank you very much.
Can I just-
Yeah,
Oh,
no?
you all set? Oh.
Yep.
Kara, look, I understand how things work with all this, okay? I think that just in a general sense, I have the same issue with the steamship. Stuff rusts outside. There's ways to prevent rust. There's a lot of good products on the market that you can use to prevent rust. It's unbelievable. Stuff called fluid film, LPS. These products are unbelievable and they work, okay? But in a municipality, it's very hard to make these things happen. I understand all that. That's why I kind of don't get into these gory details. But I think overall, if we spend whatever that number actually comes out with this consultant for the building, in floor heating, we really need to be looking at doing tube and heat in the cement, these buildings. We just went through, you know what we just went through out there with those ridiculous overheads. When you get a project that comes in, it's sort of a package. You just get whatever they're going to do somewhere else. Somewhere else is not next
Here.
to the ocean, right? Somewhere else is usually inland somewhere.
Right.
So Russ never sleeps here. It's just, Neil Young's never even been here, I don't think. It's just unbelievable, okay? So we're really fighting rust outside of a super crazy preventative maintenance where you get a guy that's doing this stuff that's sort of committed in a private sector mindset. It's hard to do. So I don't get, I'm listening to what these guys are asking about contracting, and I think that that's a good discussion because we did it with the plowing last 2 winters ago. That became a big issue because of that one odd year, and then we won't have that again for 20 years.
Hope not.
So we gotta just come down to earth. You know what I mean? With that was a nutty, crazy 3 different ice situations in the same one. I've never seen it in my lifetime. But at the same time, you know, it is big numbers and it does look scary. But I think long term, we really need to have real buildings with real heating to keep these things warm. It isn't just cold. I don't think we should be doing that. We have waste oil. We can do a lot of stuff if we do it right. Okay? The other thing, you know, we're going to have Tier 4 with off-road now, you know. You know that. Just saying.
Yep.
Keep these old diesels running, Kara.
I know.
They're worth more now because of all this. So, okay. That's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Any other?
Christine, I'm
Richard?
just curious, do we leave the $10 million figure in there? What do we do with that? What's the charge of this committee when it comes to a figure like that?
You're talking for 2019?
Well, he's talking about the whole evaluation company, and it kind of went back to 20-something, or you said 3, right? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm just looking at $10 million in 2019.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Are we just going to move on and leave that in there, or what's the next step on it?
Well, we're going to discuss this. I think we're going to discuss the items, and we can certainly bring that up and figure out what our intention is, or what we think would be best. And I don't know. I don't know the answer right now, but
Okay.
it's certainly up for discussion as far as what we think.
Libby, are you on board with
I would say this is a dynamic document, and that's a working number right now. And as we get closer to pinning down exactly what we're going to be doing, we'll revise the number. I think it's probably a good idea to get the engineering firm that's working on it to do just some of what you're talking about here, have a base project that covers our most immediate needs, getting the rolling stock under cover, unheated, and then what does heated cost, and what are the benefits of that, and then some of the other things that Kara's mentioned, which I urge everybody to go out there and look at that garage. It's a,
Pit.
yeah, that's putting it nicely.
Which one? You're talking about the mechanics garage. You're talking about
No, the big one
yeah.
On the left
No.
when you come in?
on the left, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And there are buildings there from Cyrus Pierce Middle School
No, I know.
from the 80s.
Yeah, nothing wrong with the
And-
80s. Stop complaining
Okay.
about the 80s.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hey, I'm
Decades.
from the 80s, so I'm not complaining about it. But if you go out there and look at there are rats, there are other unpleasant things that people have to work in out
Well, the
there.
rats aren't from the 80s, though.
No, they're
Well,
from before that. And
money
they've
doesn't
only
get rid of
multiplied
rats.
since then. So I just, in order to get better working conditions for people, we need to look at other things as well. But I agree, we need to do the base first.
So they're looking at
First
adding on
priority.
to that existing building on the left, or no?
No, tearing it down.
Oh, because I thought you
Removing
said something about
entirely,
adding something to
rebuilding.
something.
The admin building.
Oh, and we're going to
putting-
leave the mechanics building by itself? We're not going to add on to that
No,
either?
well,
Just leaving
a
it?
truck wash facility, but basically, the mechanics garage will have the truck wash further down, and then we need to improve the shops. The carpentry shop is ridiculous, and Ray is out at 2 fairgrounds, and he needs to come back as well.
He's got a beautiful setup. I'd leave that guy right there. No, I don't know. Whatever you want to do. I'm just kind of...
Kara, what's a trees workshop? What do they do in a tree workshop?
He sharpens all his own tools.
Yeah.
So he has a number of different size chainsaws that he has sharpening tools, and he has the materials that he uses to treat the trees. So he actually does need an area that's separated and away from everybody because he's got a lot of sharp stuff going on.
Kara, is there anything in the out years that you want to kind of detail for us? There was a request to see if you could address, go over slide 63
Or two.
or 62 when you have a second. But I also wanted to know if there was anything in the out years you wanted to sort of preempt us on.
It's mainly vehicle replacements.
Yeah, you can, yeah, let her go through this and
And we're just trying to stay within the replacement schedule for those vehicles. The main one that I wanted to point out was the garage.
Do you have the two slides there you could take a look at, 62 and 63? You could just sort
I
of
don't-
give us,
I don't have it numbered, I'm sorry.
okay.
The beautiful color-coded building map, which looks
Okay.
great, by the way.
This is just a conceptual.
Okay.
What we were talking about with the engineer was how would we do everything that we do? And so they took a stab at, I don't know, do you have the whole map?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, you know what, I didn't come out on this packet.
Okay.
Maybe I'll get that to you.
Came out.
Yeah.
This
Yours
is
is a
fun.
little more.
It's not the whole thing, but, yeah.
This is Nantucket Road up here, and this is the driveway that we use on a daily basis. The admin building is here.
So that's an existing.
Yeah.
This is the existing, and this is the existing
Got it.
annex.
Yep.
The idea is to have people park here and access the building this way. Our handicap ramp is not compliant, so we would need to create a compliant handicap ramp. That would also keep people off of the site, which is something that I'd like to have.
Absolutely.
The last thing we need is people driving around while we have
Absolutely.
heavy equipment moving around. There's an L shape that's attached to the administration building, and that's the food facilities. This is a representational green of the sign and tree shop. The blue on the lower side of the existing mechanics garage is a truck wash facility, and they also had suggested a higher bay, but we already have enough space there, so I think we'll be eliminating that. But there's a new fuel storage facility, which we actually need now.
Is that above ground or below? Sorry. But, thank you.
The existing diesel doesn't work, so we have to go to the fire station.
That's why they're buying gas trucks, Annette. Sorry.
Now you,
And then this is the vehicle facility with an awning on the side so that we can pull sanders and store them and other things that would stay outside. Then this is the new salt storage building with a ramp up so that the trucks can get there. So, and they're showing all of this area being paved, but this is the all-in. This is what we'll be working from.
As maybe your silent, strongest advocate for this picture, I think what you should do is put down or have the designers explain what will get us into where we're in compliance with regulations, things that we don't have now that we do need. The vehicle wash station is one of those, and the fuel. And I think that will go a long way in selling at least those entities that we need to comply with, and we're getting stronger and better. And I agree, whether you're have a bed knife grinder or you're sharpening chainsaw blades, you don't want people, they can't be around. There's little metal filings flying all over the place. And this is so important. And from a long-term capital budget, irregardless of the number that's out 10, 20 years, if we don't have a facility to put the equipment in today, then I'd say don't spend a nickel. I mean, that's a strong reality, but we're just putting it out to pasture. And that's what we used to do when I was a kid. We used to take the old equipment, just leave it outside.
Jim?
Think of NERDA, they do it back inside.
Jim?
Just to maybe to pick up on the point of turning now to be more of an advocate for you. I don't know if this applies to this kind of endeavor, but I know in the business I was in, co-locating certain things next to each other improved operating efficiencies. And I don't know if this is the case here. So I know, I guess if I were you, if it were me, I would look at this more as a blank slate and say, what can be put next to each other to improve cross training or whatever. That's just a piece of advice that you can take it for what it's worth. Because even though it's, I'll probably argue the other side, but at some point, but if we should do the right thing, and if, not regardless of the cost, but not to be so tempered by costs that we don't, make the right decision for a long period of time in the future.
I just would say to you, all in. That was a very benign term. I was going to use a different one, but I won't say it. Just the weight room issue. I mean, certain things will get a little picked at. Yeah. I mean, this is, we have the, I keep bringing up the steamship, but it is similar to the town. Very, very similar. Quality of help. It's hard to get people here, but we're going to give them all this, but yet we don't. It's not like it's going to be Toscana tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the things that people think here on the island. To go back to some of the stuff that Peter asked, it's going to continue to come up over the rest of our, whatever is private contracts for certain things will always be brought up as something, because it's just, as Nantucket grows and there's more unique businesses that are here to do certain tasks, that's, going to happen. You know what I mean? So I agree with what Jim just said, though. We should do this right one time, not just moving buildings from somewhere else and piecemealing. But we need to really, really do it right, though, if we're going to do it. Not just, well, this is the bid, and we'll just do this. You know what I mean? And also, long term, are we going to be out there forever? I would assume we are, as far as the DPW part goes. Yeah, I mean, well, I think that regardless of whether the landfill changes, which I think it will, I think the DPW still needs to be there. Because you're sort of there now with, you know what I mean? To move all that would be insane as far as your stuff goes. But, I just can't stress enough about corrosion protection and interior parking, especially seasonal things like plows. Every one of those pistons needs to have grease painted on it in the summertime.
Yep.
If you don't paint grease on those pistons, you know what happens, right? Okay. If you don't have emery cloth, it's over, and they all have to be fixed. So that's, I know that sounds like I'm being, strange saying it, but that is a fact.
No,
okay? It's just how it
that's
works.
normalcy.
So plows should last longer than the truck, is what I'm saying. But I know they keep changing them, and you can't redo that. I understand Fisher changes every so often. But I'm just talking from like the outside for a second. I understand that, how the outside thinks versus the inside. You know what I mean? You want these things to go through town meeting without somebody calling something. Okay? That's all I'm saying. That's it. Thanks.
Stephen, did you have any?
Yeah, a couple of things.
Yeah.
Good morning. I think just picking up along the lines of some previous comments, I'm looking through the plans. I don't see a few items. I'll name the items, and then I'll ask you my question. So the clean out and containment areas for, basically drains with oil traps in the motor vehicle area, and I didn't see anything for outdoor cleanup of mowers and chippers and things that are going to have petroleum-based products. I don't see any notation for heated areas, and I'm going to say heated areas and non-heated storage areas, because probably out here I know for a fact it's a lot cheaper to create areas for dry storage that are enclosed and they're partitioned, and the partitions are insulated so that the other areas can be heated. It's more cost effective. And then I think the other thing I would comment on, again, looking at the space needs assessment, is that the storage areas, I just don't see enough storage. There's, belts and wrenches, and there's just a lot of bulk storage that would be involved in maintaining the town. And my concern for the interest of the town is there's not enough storage space for those types of materials. So having said that, my question is, what's the next step with the space needs assessment? Where do you go with this, or where does the town go with this, so that it's reviewed with kind of a constructive, critical, similar to what we've been doing, a constructive, critical eye, or eyes, perhaps many eyes, so that the space needs assessment is, maybe redistilled or fine-tuned, and then it can be put through the CapCon preparation sieve, so that, with all the details of, for instance, this is going, having this feature is going to conform with this state regulation, which we're not in conformance in, that is going to cost this much, but it's going to save us this much in fines and fees. Having this area is going to create our productivity, so we are going to save this much money in operating costs on an annual basis because this many staff are doing something productive versus doing something that this area will prevent, and so on and so forth. How does that process play out next?
We're actually at that point right now.
Okay.
Just received this, and has just received this. We haven't had a chance to even sit down and talk about it yet. And then I imagine it will be rolled out to your selectmen. And there's a lot of discussion that has to happen before we get to the point of saying, okay, this is what we're going for. So there's still a lot of conversation happening. Not to worry about the storage. I was worried at first, but that larger building has mezzanine storage on one entire side, and then there's space on the other side as well. So there's storage is very important.
So just as a follow-up, there is going to be like another critical analysis, constructive, obviously, that's what we're here for, and not necessarily this group, but in the design phase.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is just the feasibility study. Once the details such as oil traps, that kind of thing, that will all come through in the design process.
Okay, and then the only other thing I would add, looking at this, I don't know if we have any water table issues out there in this particular area, but basement is really the cheapest place you can build on this island, basement space.
Storage.
And for storage, even if you use it, once, if there's a lift in place or an outdoor, a drive-out access with a garage bay, I know it may seem, someone may say, well, the cost isn't worth it, but that storage space is, it's irreplaceable when you're looking at long-term. Yeah. If you can put certain smaller items in bulk on pallets down below, and then have larger equipment that you would not ordinarily be able to bring into bays or storage areas brought in to preserve their useful life, I would suggest that be a consideration. And I know you're doing all this, but I think we all kind of need to feel like we're contributing, because at the end of the season, we're going to have we've got to make a recommendation for some serious amounts of money. So, thank you.
Just one little quick
Yeah,
thing.
Matt?
Kara, just to give you a little help on this too, is the airport model. You ever discussed like what they've done out there? That building.
That's what the crew holds up.
Yeah, and that is, I watch that every day. It's like a Las Vegas equipment show, okay, and except for the Vegas spot. Everything is inside. Every single thing is inside.
That's great.
Now, whether or not, we don't, so you have to separate things out, whether we need this or not, or whether we need all this unbelievable stuff. That's a different discussion. I'm talking strictly about the way it's set up. That should be the model of something that we're doing out there. I don't know. I think you'd hit water out there. You get water. You can dig down out there 20 feet?
Not 20, but
15?
no.
10? Because this IT stuff is the new thing about going down. Putting everything that has to be dry and conditioned space stuff is coming up in like some of these buildings that that the steamship wants to build. It's the same thing. You hear this going down issue.
Well, it's cheaper
The
to heat,
hospital
too.
isn't going down.
Yeah.
Stop and Shop wish they went down right now, but they couldn't because there wasn't enough time to do it. So that's a good point. I didn't even think of that. I mean, I don't know how that would work. I mean, it's so expensive to do as far as the elevator stuff and some of that, but I'm just thinking about cabinet space. There's a lot of stuff on here with fireproof cabinets and things like that takes up space. So just a thought.
Jim?
So, I appreciate everybody's input on this, and believe me, I've heard more terms just now that I don't understand than I have in a long time, and there seems to be some expertise around this table, and just let me thinking about the process. I know if this level of discussion Kara brought to the Board of Selectmen, that this isn't something we would be spending a lot of time on, but I think we would have the expectation that there is a group of people who is doing it, and a group of people besides town administration and DPW staff. We've had various degrees of success with work groups in terms of budgeting. The one that I would hold out in my brief time here is the building committee. Maybe that's not the correct term for the school, the process that they use, although I believe it's maybe statutory you have to do it, but getting a group of people, volunteers early on to participate, those that have some expertise, to advise, and then they become your ambassadors as you try to sell this to the community, because it won't be easy. I mean, it's different than schools and nursing homes, and it's just more than protecting trucks, So, but I would encourage you to be thinking about that concept. It sounds like you've got there may be some ways to link that group with this group. It sounds like you've got some expertise here. So I'm just trying to think, maybe coming from the board's perspective. I know I would have more confidence in it if we had some citizens, experts participating, in that process.
And just to echo specifically, I would reach out to the superintendent at Nantucket Golf and Sankaty, because they have all their rolling stock undercover, and they do the majority of what you do on a daily basis too. That's
They
very,
could be
very
part
helpful.
of the group if they were interested.
Those are good points. I wouldn't think of that.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that I would add at this point is both for the next steps of the process and when it comes back in front of Capcom as a final product in the SIP as an action item, is during the design phase, if it's to every extent possible, focus on pulling out justifications for costs, operational offsets, capital useful life offsets, things you would probably do anyways, but it will make it much easier for everyone to be able to point to a sheaf of paper that is accurate, that answers many questions. It will make it easier for ambassadors. It will make it easier for you. It will make it easier for the DPW and for the Capcom to be passing on it, the selectmen and so on and so forth. I'm sure you'll do it, but I just want to reinforce that.
Anything else? Richard?
I just have two more questions. Slide 74 and 75.
Okay.
Are we talking about a vehicle that is out of service and has been out of service, and you're putting it in the 2020 plan? Is that what we're talking about?
These are out years of replacement of existing vehicles.
Okay,
So
so
we're
this,
not-
this is a vehicle that we're not using right now, and,
No, it's in use.
Sludge.
okay. And the same with the 10-wheeler?
Yes.
The slide says it's been out of commission for over 2 years and has never been replaced.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the description. I'll change that. That was the description for the one last
Good eye, Richard.
year.
Can you just define what tractor means? Just so that, I mean, I think I know, but you're talking about like I'm on slide 73 now, that,
It's, just like the one you have for the beach rig.
that's what I thought, those kind of, okay, we're not buying tractor. No, I was get into that, I was gonna like take over the meeting. Very good, thank you very much.
Okay. Anything else from the committee for Kara at this point? All right. Kara, any other thing you want to bring up, or are you content? Okay. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Item 4, discussion of procedures and expectations. This is internally for the committee. I think we had discussed maybe coming up with some criteria that we can present to each department, maybe before they come to us, so that they have an preset idea of some of the questions we might ask, to have them, keep in consideration when they're putting their capital request through. So I don't know if anyone wanted to kind of start that, if they have any thoughts on some questions. Stephen?
Okay. Just to kind of back into this, at our October 5th, I made some notes just because
Yep.
it's easier for me to keep track of what the heck I'm saying. At our October 5th meeting, I posed some questions and comments, and I suggested we review our procedures with an eye on whether we are best fulfilling our role in serving the town's interest, and if not, how we might go about accomplishing this. I believe I referenced the $80 million sewer project, which at the time I understood had not been reviewed as a work group or in great detail by Capcom with a final dollar number. In any event, I wanted to say, having done some research on this, no small amount, our committee procedures, objectives, and roles were updated and established in 2013. And as you all know, from time to time, it's appropriate to review these things for tune-ups and, if necessary, to make recommendations on internal procedures and related matters. That's kind of where I was and where I am.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thought process. If I may make some other
Sure.
comment. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some other comments were, well, I was looking for a little perspective on this and how people who are not involved in sitting here and listening to the department heads and hearing about the enterprise funds perceive these things, and what they perceive is a fitness room, or they perceive $80 million, or it's a different animal to someone who's not involved in it. Not to say that those are inconsequential matters or numbers for us either, but I think you get my gist. Mm-hmm. So I tried to take a look at it from that perspective, and what I came up with is, given the fiscal year 18 SIP of some $126 million of requests, which I think is per the October 6th presentation, and our review schedule, which allocates about 2 hours per meeting, as a dollar per hour figure, we are charged with about $9 million per hour of requests with our reviews. I understand there's some sensationalism in the calculation, but speaking for myself, I think it accurately keeps a level of, it puts in perspective the level of diligence that maybe we should be applying. And by the way, I'm in no way suggesting we're not applying it.
Yeah.
Just a few more here. So I took the initiative to look into other towns and cities. With all that in mind, I took the initiative to look into other towns and cities, large and small, and state guidance, which, by the way, is quite old, the state guidance, and some of it's outdated. And from what I gathered, there are some specific changes and general changes we might feel are in the town's best interest. But my conclusion was also, though, that at this point in the process, other than peripheral changes, would seem to me to be unproductive and perhaps even unfair to department heads and their staff and also the allotment of time we have to accomplish our current reviews and recommendations. So whereas I had originally planned to come with a packet of information to distribute with suggestions and bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, it just seems to me that it's really not necessarily appropriate to do so at this stage for this particular planning session, the fiscal year 18 SIP. So, so I have two suggestions. One is that we pick up the details of what we may, a review of what to do and why and how in terms of our internal procedures in early January, and discuss internally what we feel, what documentation may be helpful for a department head to provide to us, where they're answering questions in advance, not only for us, saving them time, but providing us the information we need to be able to do our final reviews with due diligence, to make a final recommendation, and importantly, to firmly make recommendations to the Finance Committee, and do so confidently, and be able to say, well, refer to this or refer to that. Mm-hmm. This year, though, I would suggest that to build our familiarity with these line items, that perhaps we would assign each member to a SIP category. Now, there's 7 members, and there's 9 SIP categories. But the idea would be that each member would walk through with a department head. You're going to walk through and you're going to see details that you wouldn't see in this discussion. But to walk through it, maybe spend an hour on each SIP department and better familiarize the individual member with the details and other topics that might come up. They can, we're only going to get out of it what we put into it, but hopefully with good effort, it will help us to familiarize ourselves in better detail, which will be a huge tool, I think, this season in our final review period and our recommendation and our competence in providing information to the Finance Committee. That's really where I ended up with it. I put it forward to you, having brought it up initially, so you all could discuss it.
Yep. Great points. When I was on the Finance Committee with Jim, he had put in place a meeting schedule with a lot of the departments, which I think was extremely valuable for us to see more detailed and be on site. So I think that's a great idea, and it is something we could probably do this season as we start deliberating with the department heads. So I'd be in favor of that. At least if you guys think that would be beneficial to help with our deliberation and I don't know, understanding of what the requests are.
Oh, and the only other thing I would add is that what I'm suggesting is that we pick up in January. Well, maybe not January every week or January, February, March, but we get started on this review process of our, what forms or what data or what information we might want in future procedures. Well, it's still fresh in our minds, so maybe start after we finish this and set that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When does finance kick in? They kick in January, right? Isn't that when you guys start meeting on this stuff?
Well, we make our presentation in December.
In December, okay.
Yeah.
So when you say January, because I know they meet in January a lot, are you looking for like the following years?
Yeah,
yes.
That fast?
Tail end of our
that part
yes, I can.
Okay.
that would be, gee, what is it that would make it easier for us to do our job and to justify expenditures, have due diligence, so on and so forth. Yeah, that for fiscal year 19.
That's what I thought you meant, but I
Well, it's
wasn't 100%
fresh.
sure.
And we can.
Yeah, just,
Yep.
and we may say, okay, well, these are the things, everybody think about it for a month, and we'll meet again in February or March. I don't know, I'm just suggesting that we set our first meeting for that process to kick off sometime in January. It's still fresh in our minds, that's all.
I just want to ask Libby a couple questions
Yep.
with this. Libby, first of all, my first question is, how long have we been doing, this is only my third year, second, third. How long have we been doing it like this in sheer knowledge? This system that we have, will we start in September or early October and sort of work to the,
Quite a while.
that's what I kind of thought.
We've tried to make improvements every year, and actually, what our hope was with the new software is that it would provide a lot more of the information that you're talking about, but unfortunately, sooner, but
Yeah.
also throughout the process. Yeah, but yes, sooner. Unfortunately, we don't have one person who's completely dedicated to this. So other people who are already doing a lot of other things have to get to this. I have some work to do with my departments, obviously,
Yeah.
to get them to get information in sooner. And it's a bit of a struggle to get all of the detail that you all want to see, even though it's quite reasonable to expect all of it. But it's a lot of, again, it's a lot of work on departments that are already doing a lot of other things. I'm not trying to make an excuse, but I'm just saying that's why that happens. So I've also looked at a lot of other towns' capital plans and their processes, and they're all over the board.
Yeah.
There's no one standard as to how you do this. This group has had over the past, I'm going to say, 5 to 7 years, sort of routine discussions or regular discussions about what information you want, when you want it, how you want it, that kind of thing. So again, the software was meant to do that, but it hasn't panned out as well as we had hoped because we don't have people actively overseeing it. There's not one person who can oversee it. So some of this the departments have put in themselves, which is fine, but my ideal situation was they would put it in and then town administration would have a chance to review it before it went anywhere, and that hasn't even happened. I'm seeing this today.
See, yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just, so
I mean
just...
to put you on the spot.
No,
but
no,
I
I'm
knew
glad
you'd have an
that you
answer
did,
like
because
this.
would like to have a chance to explain it. So we appreciate the patience, and I can see how the patience would be wearing thin at this point about the information provided. But we do have a bit of a struggle to get the information all together. I would say I think it's probably a good idea to have a kind of a wrap-up, but I would beg you not to do it in January, because if you do in January,
Vacation.
I'm not going to be able to participate, because I've got the
Yeah,
budget and the
understandable.
town meeting that are full
Yeah.
on, and
Yeah.
FinCom meetings 2 to 3 times a week,
Yeah.
BOS weekly, and so I would say, try to keep it in your head, but more like March or April would be better.
Just a quick,
No,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry, Peter.
No, go ahead.
A quick follow-up then to what you said, and I'm sort of getting to this next thing. Steve is talking about, I have this term I use, all in favor, say aye stuff. Like there's like a list of things that municipalities, it's an all in favor, say aye kind of list, I call it. But then you have the other stuff, like Richard brought up the 10 million thing and sort of like, what are we doing? That's the kind of thing, like, of the rebuilding of the facilities at the DPW. We talked last year about 20 South Water, like for 2 meetings. We were discussing the $2,000 a square foot versus the 400, or you know what I mean. We were having a really good discussion. It was sort of a pre-BOS type of discussion. I think that is how I would sort of look at this preliminary information, the big stuff. We don't need to talk about F-350 plow trucks
Yeah.
early on. I mean, that's all in favor, say aye. I'm talking about the 50-year solution stuff, the 100-year solution stuff, I think does require a vetting maybe in the summertime. I don't know what the right time of year. The spring is late winter, and late winter is vacations, FinCom, ready for town meeting. Maybe after town meeting would be good. I don't know. But the big stuff, if you have big items coming up, like when the water company was doing all the stuff they did in the state forest and in Pulpus Road, that I'm sure we weren't just saying all in favor, say aye in one meeting. You know what I mean? We was explanations of all this. So I think that what Steve is saying is on the right track. I just would try to separate the simple stuff versus the complicated stuff.
Yeah, I
out.
don't disagree, and I think Steve is probably talking about more of the complicated stuff. If we're going to get there, but we need a built-up facilities management department, and the facilities manager would be the one who would lay out the procedure for how you go about proposing a large project. There should be a space needs analysis. There should be a program. There should be all of the options laid out. There should be the engagement of the OPM and the engineer or the architect, whatever all that is. And we have a bit of a messy process right now because the departments do it largely on their own.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
there isn't a central person or department to handle it.
And it's sort of a mix between facilities and procurement, kinda.
Yes.
It's sort of
Yep.
a mixed bag and
Yep.
that stuff.
Christie?
Peter,
Oh, go ahead. If I could read into your comments, Steve, which I thought were spot on, I think if we create each of us to take on a department and a half, we become advocates and work with that department head, which is paramount. I mean, that's awesome. Then we can collectively, we should be able to get up and actually give Kara's presentation, that person who's associated, and that'll help sell
Yeah, it's true.
to us. And then collectively, when we're writing our reports at year end, it's each of us feeding Christie with your department's, report. And I think that would be a huge step. I mean, it's just like the arborist. If an arborist wakes up in the morning and doesn't have an inventory of their trees, doesn't know where their tools are, who tells them what to do? What are they? What am I going to do today? Well, Jesus, the weather temperature is this and that, and the leaves are falling. I'm not sure what I'm doing. Those should be systematic programs, and that takes data input. If you have all those card files, and I'm just using one example, I worked a property where we had 4,000 trees in a database. And someone originally said, why are you going to spend the time doing that? Well, because guess what? We'll be able to keep and maintain those trees a lot longer if we know what the hell we have and what we're doing with them.
Stephen?
Yeah, I want to follow up to clarify how I envision this meeting or series of meetings and what the intent would be is largely as Nat has outlined it. I'm not talking about getting into only the nitty-gritty on little things. However, there are some things on the little things that department heads could provide, such as operational savings based on not having to do maintenance on a particular vehicle or something along those lines. That we would hash out as part of our process. Nat's comment would have been one of the things I envisioned we would hash out is, gee, we're not looking to get this all up front on every single item and, how do we stage it? What's involved? It would also incorporate, and I think importantly so, Libby's comments and the town's capabilities, and work those into the plan. Like, we have a plan for how we're managing. I believe we should have a plan for how we're managing our capital review that takes into consideration what's ideal for our town in terms of how we manage it, what is currently the capability, and then how we get from A to B. That would be part of that process of meeting in January or whenever and beginning it. And then regards Libby's other comment in terms of involvement, I know Libby should be involved, and I frankly, as a member, I wouldn't have any other way. But I think there are some things like these portions of the discussion that we might kind of map out in January while they're fresh in our minds, and then pick it up again when Libby's available to kind of really get into the nitty-gritty of what is it we're talking about, how are we best going to do this, how does it not add undue burden to the staff and the departments and the resources that we have, how does it best articulate and justify the requests now and in the future with a department head who handles facility management. And I'm not looking at this as as I said, I think I said at the beginning, this isn't a qualitative statement on what we've been doing or the Capcom has been doing or the capabilities of the town. I'm looking for kind of like a synergistic plan and a common understanding of what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it for fiscal 18, fiscal 19, and going forward. So again, we have a plan. That's all.
Jim?
Just a couple comments. I was trying to get some clarification on what specific recommendations are, what we're going to change now. So if Peter's if what he said is the clarification of that, that's great. And is that a decision that we're going to make as a group today in terms of getting to know one department or not? I just posed that as a question. And just I share my experience working on the FinCom. We also spent time thinking about how we can improve our different processes and procedures, and we said let's do it quickly, and now let's do it in the summer. And we did it in the summer, and then it kind of died because we're all exhausted. So, my thought was the sooner you could do it, or whether Libby's involved or not, would make some sense. So but I would ask on the table, what's the decision of the group as to what we're going to change, if anything, now in terms of our process.
I'd like to say that Peter's point should be modified into, I don't think one person should be like DPW and one for maybe the airport. I think more than one member. I mean, obviously I'm interested in the DPW stuff more because I just understand it more, but that doesn't mean that I wouldn't want to, I don't know, have somebody else.
But if there's
nothing
nine
about your knowledge on that.
maybe some departments need more than one, but others. But I don't know if we, I don't want to serve on two of these subgroups.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So
that's the other issue. Too much
I think
stuff
one
person.
should be enough if we have a department head that can, lead us through that.
My thought process on that, if I may, was that everybody, there are members of this committee who are involved with many other committees.
Yeah.
And that has two aspects to it. One is that, the burden on their time, their ability to actually go and do what we as a committee would want or expect of them. And two is that, like, for instance, with Nat, as longtime planning board and NPDDC, one of our largest single SIP areas is the transportation. So, for instance, and I'm not volunteering, but I am. He could hit the ground running on transportation, and he would be able to stand up and advocate for any one of those items, and not only advocate but justify. And I think that's really the thing that I'm looking for is we want to be able to advocate for decisions and determinations we make as a group. In order to do that, we need to be able to justify it. And really, this is about justification. This is about going out, becoming familiar with it, having the questions answered, and whatnot. And the other side is that I have no reservation about having, or would have any reservation about having more than one person involved. It was just simply who can cover what ground and who's got other obligations.
So we're going to give those assignments now?
What if, it's just a thought, if we kind of left it up to the department head when they are available to meet, and what if I would post those times when each department head was available, and we could go accordingly?
I think there's some advantage of all of us just taking the list and just right now deciding who we want to, be a buddy with. So.
Yeah,
Or a
I
hybrid.
suggest you just get the list, figure out who's going to do it, and then we'll set up meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if
But
other
what is
members
the
want to
I don't know what a SIT is. What is it? You said
SIP.
a SIP.
Capital Improvement Plan.
A SIP.
That's what this is.
It's
CIP.
Oh, CIP.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I had to think for a while. I didn't
Okay.
want to ask myself.
So
but I
there's
figured it
9.
out.
There's these 9
I'm
departments.
just using the title of the
Yeah.
form I got. It says Capital Improvement Plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to volunteer for.
But what are the 9?
Well, there's
Where's that? And is that what we talked about
it's the
today?
facilities, which doesn't currently have a dedicated department head, or does?
DPW.
DPW, okay. Fire department, our island home, police department, public works, DPW, school department. I would say that facilities and public works should be dealt with as separate SIP projects because that's how they're in the SIP. If you want to call it something else, just let me know. School department, sewer expansion, town admin, and transportation.
Airport, where is it?
It's not on here.
The airport is
But
on.
you don't have the enterprise funds right now.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
There's more than 9.
Yeah. I was gonna say this.
Facilities, fire, this is kind of random.
Yeah.
Off the top of my head, but
YH.
DPW, IT, school, airport, Wanacommet, solid waste, sewer, transportation, police / marine, town admin.
The only two I don't think I have in that list is IT and marine. So that would be a less.
Marine
Well,
side,
it's police, marine, it's one
Okay, so
thing.
that would be a common.
And Marine is like,
I'm still
And
looking
I
for the
don't-
list, but that's okay.
Yeah, we wouldn't have it on this.
Oh, okay.
I have 13,
13?
yep.
So we are, okay.
So it's
You
two
could
each.
double some of them up, maybe,
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
you
a lot of things.
So I'll pick 2. I just want to,
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
trying to see if we can.
No, I mean, I think.
I'll
I
pick
think-
our Allen Home and IT.
Okay.
I'd like to volunteer for the police department. I'm actually doing the Citizens Police Academy, and we're going through
Oh, cool.
what makes, how the police department works, the Marine Department, their IT, and also what's required, so it might be helpful.
I'm
And
gonna-
I can volunteer for another if I'm needed,
Yeah.
DPW. But I'll wait on that. Nat seems to have an interest.
Yeah.
I don't want to volunteer myself for anything, but I want to be part of it. I'm so
Yeah.
busy, I can't even stay here till 10.
Well, maybe we
Today.
could double up on that.
But
Is this-
DPW, Libby, my question, how much other stuff is on the DPW, like sewer's DPW, right?
For
Or are we
now,
putting
but
that
it's
into
going to
the-
be separate shortly.
Yes, and that's what I'm
Solid
kinda-
waste and facilities would be
Yeah,
part,
I
and
like- that's fine.
transportation.
I like to be on that, this,
So
not
you wanna
me only,
combine-
but just me is fine.
You want to combine
There's
facilities,
Sewer
DPW?
and transportation, or
Yeah.
which one did you want? Sewer and solid waste, or
I-
transportation?
All
Or
of that.
all of it?
We'll make it
As
work for you.
DPW,
Yeah, we'll do.
because
yeah.
it's the same, I mean,
So there's going to be 4 things that you two are assigned to: facilities, DPW, solid waste, and transportation.
yeah, that
We'll
would be
lump it
good.
into one.
I would like,
group.
that would be good.
I'll
Richard?
volunteer for fire and school. No one else.
All right.
Hurry up, Peter.
I know. I'm SRO.
Jump in.
We already
School
did it.
presenting.
What's left?
Well, that's, I was
We're
going to
we're
wait.
gonna get to that.
What are we doing?
There's the water, which I don't mind doing. That's it. That's the enterprise, right? Yeah.
You got airports and town admin, airport and town admin, and sewer.
But Peter's got a lot of experience with the school and
Yes.
with the DPW too, so maybe, I don't know if that's a place for
I can help
a
Richard
buddy
on the
system,
school.
a buddy system,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'll work on admin
Okay.
and school.
They don't have a capital budget.
Right, admin.
Okay, you got airport and sewer.
I'll do airport. And
Now, is sewer, that's not the new sewer project.
Well,
She means
it's
gonna-
probably not
stuff.
necessarily the one we just
Okay,
approved,
right.
but we still have a ballot question to get through.
Yeah, but in terms of becoming expert in some line, we're not asking a member of this group to become the expert on the sewer.
Well, not the
Project.
project, but there's a lot of equipment. that
Correct.
Okay,
is-
okay.
Pump
all right.
station,
And-
David
yeah.
Gray's presentation. Is he
Okay.
coming this year? Yeah,
Um,
because he was unbelievable last year.
yeah, he
Yeah,
was
just-
he was refreshing.
I like learned a lot of stuff that I didn't know.
Stephen, what was it?
It's hugely important.
I have you for police and marine. What was the other? Was there another one?
Police, did you
Was it
have
facilities?
DPW, I got you.
DPW and police? I guess police and marine was, police, marine, and DPW.
So who was sewer?
No
Nobody
one
yet.
yet. I mean,
I mean,
I'll do it. Which one?
Oh, yeah, Pete.
Yeah, we do.
Peter.
Oh, that's
forgot
good.
about Pete.
I was counting on numbers. I'm like, wait a minute.
Oh, that's right. What are we gonna
If he gets sewer, he's not
Guess
here.
what happened when you...
Pete's got to be like IT, and
Oh, he's a numbers man.
he's into
I
all
think I
that
heard
kind
you
of
say
stuff.
He could. I mean, 2 is fine. I don't mind
I'm on record, Pete.
Pete, sewers?
sewer and IT.
I want IT.
Well, you both can have it.
Oh,
Is that
all
all right?
right.
Well, just to
It's just a little
to be clear, though, and following up on your suggestion, there's no reason that other members who are I mean, we'll get a schedule, and it will say it's this day at this time, so.
Correct.
If you wanted
We're
to
all
go
welcome.
because you want to broaden your knowledge, you're,
Okay.
it's okay, right?
Could be 4 of us
Yeah.
there, and that's fine.
Okay, I just want to make sure,
They'll be the point men.
because some of this stuff I'm just interested in.
So why don't we do, since, I'd rather just have, so I'll do Ireland Home and have Pete do IT. And I'll
Okay.
back off from that.
Okay. But you said you really wanted it, Jim.
I did, just because I know those people, but that's okay. He'll do a better job than me.
Okay. We'll get an email out of all these, just so we're clear what everyone is.
Maybe what might a little bit help for the scheduling is if you guys could email Leno and I what days are bad for you, days and times, so that we can try to get out good times.
And
So
you
we're
like that by the end of the day today?
It could be by the end of the week. We're not going to have this by tomorrow.
Well, that just means so we get it done.
That would be great.
Okay.
Not to put pressure on you.
Did somebody take water? Want to come?
I
Yes,
did.
Christie.
Okay.
I did. Okay.
There's
Has Capital Committee done these before? This part of it?
actually, what, this kind of thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so. I think
Good.
not last year or so, but I think it's a good idea.
It's going to be kind of feel our way through it, I think, for this year,
Yeah.
but I think it'll be valuable because when we sit down in January and thereafter, this will also be something we can kind of draw on and refine in terms of a process.
And I think, I know Liberty will do it exactly this way, but it'll be introduced as we want to become advocates for the department.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think people will be happy with that. That's certainly, so I think that's another benefit.
Yeah.
There's two areas that we didn't get quite exactly on your schedule: school and facilities.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that we do that on the 16th. What do we have now? Right now, Leno? Recap and status review is right now, and the school doesn't have a lot for 18 anyway.
I said it already.
Capital.
Facility, what's that?
Capital.
Yep, capital, sorry, right. Facilities has some things, and they are coming directly from the facilities maintenance plan that we had engaged a firm to do about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
But we do need to get at those things.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. The 16th?
So November 16th?
Yep.
Can I suggest an item for the agenda?
Yep.
I'd be looking for some type of a bond program planning report, basically a line item view of the projects that are bonded, with the respective project having columns for prior year, its total, the current and future years, and the overall total. I can provide a layout or something, but
I think we already, you mean for
I didn't
prior
see it.
projects?
Just a bond report. So we
Notes, what's coming off, what's on, what's left.
Yeah, just
that
so we
stuff.
have a handle on it. It's actually a follow-up too for the residual for previously appropriated funds. I'd asked for a report that kind of said where they are, how much is left over, and what the department recommends we do with it, how we reappropriate it, for what purposes. And this would be separate from the big spreadsheet we got, because it's just it would be drawn from it. It would just be a single report, maybe a couple pages, but it would give us that information in a kind of a discrete format.
All right, I think Brian and I are going to need to talk about that, and that's not going to be till early November.
Okay, maybe we just put those two items on an agenda
So a debt service report.
yeah, different words, but yeah,
And that's probably good to look at the end of our compilation of
Yeah.
all the departments.
Well, that's part of
That'll
that's part
help
of the
us.
selling.
Yeah.
I hate to, I don't mean to
Absolutely.
say it like that, but that's the biggest thing, is selling this stuff by the public or whoever, when the FinCom has to go through it, knowing what's coming off. People think that, like, the loans are never paid, or they don't know that something's, you know what I mean? That's good stuff.
Yep.
Two other items. One, just some housekeeping. I had asked for a version of the capital improvement plan. Brian had said he could provide it with the two previous years, 16 and 17. I'm bringing that up as an example. If we have items like that, I believe it's even reflected in the minutes, but if we have items like that, what's the proper procedure to just follow up on it? It doesn't necessarily have to be an item of discussion at the meeting. Do I send a request to you as a reminder, just an informal email that goes to Libby, or do I send
Yeah,
it to
you
Libby,
can-
or what do I do?
I'm sure you can understand that we're in the midst of a lot right now with special town meeting just getting over, and
No
we had a
question.
bond presentation recently. So I'm sure we can give,
One,
I think Brian mentioned 1 year.
oh, I'm sorry, I thought it was two.
Correct. Correct.
or maybe we can just give them the long spreadsheet from the prior year, the long one. So this software,
My printer's only 13 by 19.
we can print it out for you because you're not going to.
No, I'm just,
I'm just thinking, I'm just trying to think this through a little. So prior to this software, we had large, like 8.5 by 11 or 11 by 14 sheets that has everything on it, and there would be a report for all, you remember it, there's a summary sheet and there's all the projects. It's probably, I don't know, 15 pages-ish that would be produced after everything is approved at town meeting. So we could give you that for the last couple of years, but I don't know how helpful that's going to be. But we can get that.
well, I would look for either the existing format we have, just so there's congruency, the way my brain works, it'll be simpler for me, just to have another column added, or if there is something that will incorporate this information, if what you just outlined incorporates this information, and then it would incorporate the previous year, that would be fine with me too. I just want to be able to get a handle on it, some historical reference, that's all.
So we get it, obviously, let out as a PDF. The software itself, does it utilize Excel? Or-
It does utilize Excel, but the software, you can't really export it in Excel format.
Okay.
The way the software works.
I was saying, maybe Steve could actually, if it were capable, he could actually do it and put some of those older years in to
Or
create a
maybe we
doc.
can just print out what we had from last year in PDF and just send it.
Yeah, I'm not looking to, I believe me, I understand the
Yeah,
load on it,
I
I'm
can
not
run the
looking to
report
add to it.
easily in Excel, I don't know, but I'll see what I can do.
And you had sent me, I believe, I requested and received a copy of this in Excel, so I could,
Of the old,
Yeah.
of how we track.
yeah, so I
where
could
all
work with the
projects
data.
are
Yeah.
at that we
Yeah.
looked at.
Okay.
I think I'll look at that.
Yep. Go ahead, Stephen.
Just, is the, are we okay calling this a SIP, our
Yeah.
pack, okay. Is the September 26th spreadsheet the most up-to-date? We received a projects by department spreadsheet, 2018, 2027, with totals column, each of the departments listed, and the line items, and it was dated September 26th. It's now, getting closer to November, and I want to make sure I have that up-to-date. That's all.
That's a working document, so as things come in
Changes.
or numbers change or things are pushed out, I can print those anytime.
Okay, or just email a PDF?
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it, thank you.
Nat?
I gotta go.
Okay. We're all going to go real soon.
Gotta
We're all going to go real soon.
And we go. Talk to Sally in the corridors.
Do you guys have, is there,
Thanks, Nat.
do you-
go.
see ya,
Bye,
Nat.
Nat.
Would there be any benefit to us having 5 or 10 minutes after we meet with the department head just to discuss any of the items? So we're just not waiting till the discussion period? I don't know if that would help
Bring
anyone.
back a report, you mean?
No, I mean, just a few minutes after the meeting. For example, Kara just left. If we just discuss some of those items internally.
Why not?
Just sort of kind of have
To get
a few little
sense, like a
components
sense of
that
the
we
group, yeah.
Yeah.
are thinking about. All right. Does that need to be an agenda item, or can it?
I think it's already covered in the discussion.
Okay.
about
Got it.
No, I think that whole conversation about the building and the site, the development, was really important.
I did too.
I thought that was great.
Yeah.
And I got a sense from the group that everybody's pretty much okay about all those pieces of equipment in general. So that was kind of a way that we reflected on her presentation, and maybe took it in a way that she didn't expect, but I thought it was good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just speaking personally.
Yeah. I just don't want to wait,
Yeah,
you know, a
right.
month or
Yeah, yeah,
2
yeah.
months to start discussing. I just
That's
want to
fine.
have a little sense of where we're at.
Especially you as chairman, you like to know where the
Right.
committee's.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree, totally.
And we might even identify in those discussion periods at the end of the meeting, things that we want to look more into.
Mhm.
And then, because we have, you know, our relative expert, you know, they may then be able to look into it more when they meet. So, you know, it kind of working together
Yeah.
may be very helpful for us.
Is-
So should we begin that discussion period now?
I think we just had it.
I mean, I think we've been through a lot of the
Yeah.
good points, really.
Okay.
But,
So,
but I'd like to
when
do
do
that.
you want us, Mr. Chairman, to have had our departmental meetings?
Well,
What's the
I
deadline?
mean, are we thinking we want to do this before we meet with each department head, so it's managed through the process? In other words,
I'm just going to schedule the meetings
okay.
Okay,
within the next month.
okay,
or
but,
less.
but it would be before they presented.
Not
Well,
necessarily.
some of them have already presented, so.
It might be beneficial, sorry, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Thank you. I cover a big family, sorry. It might be beneficial to actually have our group go through, one of our members go through after, if possible. I don't see a downside to it, because if there are questions that we have in discussion after a presentation, we identify as a group, gee, I'd like to learn more about this as a group, like to learn more about A, B, and C, that could be picked up when our member was in the field. So there is maybe a benefit.
Well, I think-
I personally would want to come prepared when the manager or department head makes the presentation here,
Yeah, that makes more sense.
so personally,
So beforehand,
yeah,
if at all possible,
yeah.
I guess. If at
Yeah,
all possible.
We just have to, you know.
I
look at
understand
the
there's a-
schedule and see
is
who's
it- yeah,
assigned to
the-
what, and,
Whichever ones that can be achieved on, that'd be great, but, I mean,
yep.
that's all. Let's see here. Good. Let's see. All right, date of next meeting, Wednesday, October 22nd. Back upstairs. Linnell, do you know what the item?
Police, fire, and IT is what I have on my list.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
It's kind of
You see
nice
them.
down here. It's a little cool, but is there a reason we can't meet here?
I don't know.
I don't know. Sometimes it's taken, sometimes your group likes it upstairs.
Potential conflicts. Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah. Okay. Meeting, motion adjourned?
The chairs are more comfortable.
Second?
Aye.
Aye.